So, we have completed learning about the tooth, and as I told you, tongue is still remaining in the oral cavity or buccal cavity. Just 1 minute I will revise. The floor of the buccal cavity is formed by the tongue, roof is formed by the palate, anterior part of the palate is called as the hard palate, posterior part is called as the soft palate. And in the buccal cavity only means over the gums teeth are present. We have studied different types of teeth and we have studied longitudinal section of the tooth also. So, tongue is remaining. First we learn about the tongue, later we are going to learn about all the different parts related to digestive system. So, tongue in human beings, we call it as muscular. It is a muscular tongue. Listen carefully, tongue is muscular in nature and tongue is attached to the floor of buccal cavity. This is very important point, attached to the floor of buccal cavity, okay, buccal cavity by a fold called as frenulum, okay, like fold, like a layer here. See, tongue is attached to the buccal cavity with the help of a fold or layer which is called as the frenulum. And one more thing I want to tell you, tongue scientifically called as lingua. Lingua refers to tongue. Please copy that also. Technically or scientifically, tongue is called as the lingua. Okay. So, the normal word is tongue, scientific term what we can give to tongue is lingua. In the same manner, yesterday I forgot to tell you, see, gingiva. Gingiva refers to jaws. Gingiva refers to jaws. Okay. So, tongue is attached to the floor of the buccal cavity by a layer or a fold called as the frenulum. So, some books they will write lingual frenulum. Lingua refers to tongue. The type of frenulum that is associated with the tongue is called as the lingual frenulum. Now, we learn like this. See, in the center of the tongue, you can see one part is labeled, that is called as median sulcus. Sulcus means some depression. See, you also can watch your tongue, you can observe your tongue in the mirror. It is not a flat surface, it is not a flat surface. In the central part of it, you can see some groove, that is called as the median sulcus. Okay? That is called as median sulcus. And now, what we are going to learn is, tongue is characterized by small projections. Small projections. Okay. So, these projections are nothing but papillae. These projections are called as the papillae. Tongue shows characteristic small sized projections which are called as the papillae. How to imagine projections like this? Okay, all over the tongue you can see the presence of small projections which are called as the papillae. So, in human being, see, I will write first like this, 4 types of papillae are there. 4 types of papillae are there. The first type, first you write down here, later I will show you in the diagram. Circumvallate, first type is called as circumvallate papillae, circumvallate papillae. Second time is called as filiform papillae. Second type is called as filiform papillae, and third type is called as fungiform papillae, and last one is called as foliate papillae. Last one is called as foliate papillae. So, tongue shows minor or smaller projections which are called as the papillae. So, 4 types of papillae are there. First type are circumvallate papillae, second type are filiform papillae, next it is fungiform papillae, and next type of papillae are called as the foliate papillae. First you see their location on the diagram, later I will describe about them. You can see here these are circumvallate papillae and fungiform papillae, you can see filiform papillae and foliate papillae. Okay. So, epiglottis, tonsils are just labeled telling you, describing you that they are very much nearer to the tongue. Now, we need not learn about epiglottis. When I teach pharynx, we are going to learn epiglottis. So, lingual tonsils means which are the tonsils. Tonsils are lymphoid bodies which are directly attached or related to the tongue are called as the lingual tonsils. Okay. So, now we come back to the papillae. See, circumvallate papillae are actually arranged like half moon shaped. Okay. The papillae are arranged like half moon shaped manner, okay, at the base of the tongue. Okay. So, this is the base of the tongue. At the base of the tongue, circumvallate papillae are arranged like half moon shaped. Okay. But on the top only, top of the tongue, but at the base. See, this is the anterior part you imagine, and this is the posterior part of the tongue, and this can be called as the base of the tongue. Okay. So, circumvallate papillae shows 8 to 12 papillae are there, 8 to 12. The number is 8 to 12 and they show, each papillae shows 100 taste buds. Each papillae shows 100 taste buds, and out of all the papillae, circumvallate papillae are larger in shape. They are large in shape. Now, the second type of papillae are called as the filiform papillae, which are very small, small in size, numerous in number, and one of the important point about filiform papillae is there are no taste buds. A point to remember, filiform papillae do not possess the taste buds, instead they possess tactile receptors. Okay. A special type of receptors which are meant for sensation of touch, tactile receptors. They are touch receptors. Very important point. See, filiform papillae are small, numerous in number, they do not possess the taste buds, and instead they possess tactile receptors. What are they? Tactile receptors, and you can see filiform papillae are present at the tip of the tongue, at the tip of the tongue. Now, the next one are the fungiform papillae. Listen carefully. Fungiform papillae are generally present at the margins of the tongue. On the entire length of the margin of the tongue, you can see the presence of the fungiform. Fungiform papillae are present on the entire margin. See, now how you have to imagine, tip filiform papillae, here base circumvallate papillae, on the margins you can see the presence of fungiform papillae. But fungiform papillae shows 5, see, taste buds, they show the taste buds, and each fungiform papillae shows 5 taste buds. Are you understanding? Each fungiform papillae shows 5 taste buds. So, next one is the foliate papillae. Foliate papillae are not well developed. Foliate papillae are not well developed in humans. They are present, but they do not function much. Okay? Foliate papillae. Then where foliate papillae are present means at the lateral sides of, or on either sides of, lateral sides of the base of tongue. lateral sides of the base of tongue, you can see the presence of foliate papillae. Okay. And one more thing, see circumvallate papillae are larger in shape, filiform are smaller in shape, and the size of the fungiform papillae is in between circumvallate and filiform papillae, and filiform papillae are the papillae which do not possess the taste buds, instead they show only tactile receptors which will give the sensation of the touch, and fungiform papillae are present at the margins of the tongue, and each papillae shows 5 taste buds. So, correct number is not given how many papillae are there, but circumvallate 8 to 12 papillae, these are 8 to 12 papillae, each one consisting of 100 taste buds. And foliate papillae also you can see in newborn babies, they may be little bit functional, but later they won't perform much function. It is shared by other 3 types of the papillae present at the either side or lateral sides of the base of the tongue. So, and here you can see one more thing, see this side sweet, see the bursts which will give sensation of the sweet are present here, then comes the salt, then comes the sour, and here it is bitter. See once again you see sweet, salt, sour, bitter type of taste buds are present starting from the tip of the tongue to the base of the tongue. Now, we are learning what are the functions of the tongue. After this, we are moving on to pharynx. So, I will write here on the top so that down part you can copy. See what are the functions of the tongue that we see. Functions of tongue. Functions. First one is mixing of food. Mixing of food with saliva. Mixing of food with saliva. It also helps in deglutition. Deglutition refers to swallowing. It helps in deglutition. And next one is speech. It helps in speech. How we speak? It's because of the tongue only, and it acts like a natural toothbrush. Natural toothbrush. It cleans the food particles that are settled in between the teeth. So, it helps in mixing of the food with saliva. Deglutition means helps in swallowing, and it helps in talking means speech, and it also acts as a natural toothbrush. So, whatever food particles that are entangled in between the teeth can be removed by the tongue. So, we have completed mouth, oral cavity or buccal cavity. Now, we are going to learn pharynx. See, all these you are not learning in a simple way. So, you should show lot of focus. Later, you should not have any confusion. See, how to understand pharynx, that we learn. Okay. So, next is about pharynx. Buccal cavity or oral cavity leads into pharynx. If you remember yesterday's session, I told you that soft palate, the posterior part of the palate is called as the soft palate. Its name is uvula, and uvula hangs down and separates the buccal cavity from pharyngeal cavity. So, mouth, buccal cavity, pharynx in a series, one after the other, in a sequential manner they are arranged if you study the internal anatomy. So, pharynx, it is very short actually, short, a little bit wider part, okay, a short and a little bit wider part. So, oral cavity opens into pharynx. Oral cavity opens into it, like that I will write. Oral cavity opens into pharynx. Oral cavity opens into pharynx. See, pharynx is 3 parts. Pharynx is divided into 3 parts. In human beings, pharynx is divided into 3 parts. The first one is called as nasopharynx. First one is called as nasopharynx and second one is called as oropharynx. Second one is called as oropharynx and last part is called as laryngopharynx. Last part is called as laryngopharynx. You see, pharynx is the common chamber for the passage of food as well as air. You have to remember this point. Pharynx is the common passage for the movement of the food as well as the air. So, that is why pharynx is studied even in the respiratory system also. However, pharynx is studied in digestive system, we all know that. It is studied in respiratory system also. The reason is pharynx is the common chamber for both the passage of food as well as the air. Okay. So, pharynx is divided into 3 parts: nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx. I will draw one rough diagram to understand them, or I will show like this schematically. See, nasal cavities. Nasal, okay, down I will write. We will take another chalk piece better. See, nasal cavities. Nasal cavities. At the behind the nasal cavities is nasopharynx. Nasopharynx. Okay. Then comes oral cavities. Oral cavity means buccal cavity. Okay. Open into oropharynx. Oropharynx. See how we have to understand, I will show you. See, behind the, these are the nasal cavities, behind them is the nasopharynx and this is the oral cavity, behind it is the oropharynx. So, very interesting way you have to understand. Nasopharynx opens into oropharynx and oral cavity also opens into oropharynx. Okay. See, behind the nasal cavities, nasopharynx is present. Okay. And oral cavities open into oropharynx. Nasopharynx also open into oropharynx. Nasopharynx also opens into oropharynx. Nasopharynx and oropharynx open into laryngopharynx. Like this you have to understand. Laryngopharynx. They open into laryngopharynx. And laryngopharynx is the last part of the pharynx, inferior part of the pharynx. And from the laryngopharynx, if you imagine laryngopharynx as a box like structure, 2 tubes will arise. One tube is called as the trachea, okay, trachea, which you can also call it as food pipe, sorry, windpipe, okay. So, which you can also call it as the windpipe. And second one is the esophagus, which is called as food pipe. See, like that, the tubes of the digestive system and respiratory system are linked to each other. See, once again I will tell you, behind the nasal cavities is nasopharynx. Oral cavity opens into oropharynx. Nasopharynx also opens into oropharynx, but both of them open into laryngopharynx. From laryngopharynx, 2 tubes will arise. One is called as the esophagus and another one is called as the trachea. Trachea is the windpipe, esophagus is the food pipe. Are you understanding? Food pipe. Okay. So, now we learn trachea. The upper part of the trachea shows glottis. an opening called as the glottis. Okay, and this is opening. Glottis is the opening. So this opening is covered by a cartilaginous flap. Cartilaginous flap, which is called as epiglottis. It is called as epiglottis. See, listen once again. Trachea, esophagus, both arise from the laryngopharynx only. At the top of the trachea, there is an opening called as the glottis. Glottis is covered by a cartilaginous layer or flap called as the epiglottis, because when we take food, see, both will arise from the same part of the pharynx. When you take the food particles may reach the trachea, so that we cannot breathe air. That is why when you are taking the food, the glottis is closed by the epiglottis. Okay. So, this is about the pharynx. Okay. See, all of you are copying. I feel yesterday only I told you should copy everything beyond NCERT, sometimes beyond study material also we will teach. Okay. So, this is about the pharynx. Now, we move on to the first diagram, because we are going to learn about esophagus, stomach, etc. Okay. So, I am going back. So, this is the first diagram what we have seen. Now, what is the next part? We should learn about esophagus. And one more thing I want to tell you, now I will write here. Okay. See, nasopharynx is connected to middle ear, here, middle ear. Nasopharynx is connected to middle ear through one tube called as eustachian tube. Okay. So, from the nasopharynx to middle ear, connecting these two parts, there is a tube that is called as the eustachian tube. See, eustachian tube is exactly present here. When you feel cold or when you suffer from cold, while swallowing you can feel pain here, that is eustachian tube. Are you understanding? So, nasopharynx is connected to middle ear with the help of a tube, that is eustachian tube. Now, we are going to learn about esophagus. Esophagus. Esophagus, one point we have already learnt, that is it arises from the laryngopharynx. But I told the opening of the trachea is called as glottis. Then what is the opening of esophagus called as? It is called as gullet. It is called as gullet. Okay. The opening of esophagus is called as gullet, and esophagus is somewhat long compared to the pharynx, long tube that passes through throat, then pierces the diaphragm. Okay, I will tell you what are all this. Diaphragm, and enters into stomach, like this you have to imagine. See, in the diagram you can see this whole length is called as the esophagus. See, obliquely there is one structure present which is called as the diaphragm. See, in our body like this, in oblique manner, one muscular structure is present which is called as the diaphragm. Diaphragm separates the upper thoracic cavity from the lower abdominal cavity. So, diaphragm position is what? Oblique in position. It separates the upper thoracic cavity from the lower abdominal cavity. So, esophagus, it passes through the throat, it pierces the diaphragm and enters into stomach, or it changes into a bag like stomach. And the walls are highly muscular. That is why a contraction of the muscles occurs in the wall of the esophagus, that is called as peristalsis. peristalsis is exhibited first by the esophagus. Then the wave of contraction passes throughout the length of the digestive tract. But peristalsis in detail we are going to learn during digestion of the food. So, what you have to remember here is the act of peristalsis, okay, begins from esophagus, and in peristalsis there is vigorous contraction of the muscles present in the wall of esophagus. Okay, that much only you have to remember. Next one we learn about the stomach. When I teach and write the position, you should see the diagram also. Okay, so according to the diagram, you can easily tell that stomach is present on the left side of the body. Okay, stomach. How will you give the means how will you describe the location? Present, I will write tick mark, means present at the upper left corner. See, left side only stomach, upper left corner of abdomen, upper left corner, exactly here, upper left corner of the abdomen. And stomach is a J-shaped, stomach is a J-shaped bag-like structure. Stomach is a J-shaped bag-like structure, and stomach is divided into, first one is cardiac part, divisions I am writing, I will show diagram also next. Cardiac part, fundic part, third one is the fundic part, third one is the body of the stomach, fourth part is the pyloric part. Okay, our textbook has given only 3 parts, cardiac, fundic and pyloric. So, I am dividing it into 4 parts, cardiac part, fundic part, body of the stomach and pyloric part. See, now we will see, yes, yeah, you can see here esophagus entering into the stomach. See, this is the fundic part. Here I have written cardiac part first, but this is the cardiac part and this is the fundic part, pyloric part. Okay. So, there was one MCQ. We know that esophagus enters into the stomach. One question was asked, esophagus enters into which part of the stomach? In the diagram it is very clear, esophagus enters into the cardiac part of the stomach. Okay. So, here I will write like this, esophagus enters into this part, esophagus enters here. Okay. So, the point where esophagus enters into cardiac stomach, there will be one valve or sphincter. That valve is called as, okay, gastroesophageal sphincter. What is that? Gastroesophageal sphincter. Gastroesophageal sphincter, and or which can also be called as cardiac sphincter, which can also be called as cardiac sphincter. Now, what are sphincters? Sphincters are nothing but the valves. For example, if the food from esophagus enters into the stomach, when it enters into the stomach, if the valve opens, okay. So, the valves or sphincters are made up of smooth muscles. When the body requires, they will be closed, and when it does not require, they open. Okay. So, food enters into the cardiac part of the stomach when gastroesophageal sphincter or cardiac sphincter is open. Once the food enters into the stomach, this valve immediately closes to prevent the backward flow of the food. So, if any MCQ comes, what is the location of gastroesophageal sphincter or cardiac sphincter? What you are going to write? It is present at the junction of esophagus and cardiac stomach, or the sphincter is present at the place where esophagus enters into cardiac part of the stomach. Like that you have to write. And here in the labeling it is not there, I want to tell you. See, this is called as the posterior part of the stomach, and this is regarded as the anterior part of the stomach. And this is called, this entire length is called as greater curvature of the stomach. Greater curvature of the stomach. And this one, this lesser part is called as the lesser curvature. It is called as the lesser curvature. See, the greater curvature of the stomach only stores the fat. Whatever extra fat that is settled, that we take in the food, is stored by the greater curvature. See, fundic and body of the stomach, not much information, but the terminal part of the stomach is called as the pyloric, and pyloric stomach opens into duodenum of small intestine. Okay, duodenum of small intestine. The pyloric part of the stomach opens into duodenum of the small intestine. And again this is also guarded. This is also guarded by one sphincter, that is called as pyloric sphincter. Okay. So, I told you what is the function of the sphincter. Sphincters are also called as the valves, which are made up of smooth muscles. They will prevent the backward flow of the food. Like that, you can see two sphincters now. The place where esophagus opens into the stomach, one sphincter called as gastroesophageal sphincter or cardiac sphincter, and the last part of the stomach is called as the pyloric stomach, where the pyloric stomach opens into duodenum. At that junction also one more sphincter is there, pyloric sphincter. Here also it prevents the backward flow of the food. And what is the function of the stomach? Stomach helps in storing the food. Okay? So, whatever food you take, immediately it won't go to small intestine. For certain amount of time it will be stored, that is in the stomach. In one of the session, I am going to show like a tabular column, one side all the digestive organs and another side functions of different parts of the digestive system, so that you can have a quick revision. So, you understood location, okay, present at the upper left corner of the abdomen. See children, this is the abdomen, this is the thorax, and which will separate thorax from abdomen? Obliquely arranged diaphragm separates. Okay. So, this is about the stomach, and now we are moving on to the next part. So, we should go back again, sorry, first diagram to show the small intestine and the large intestine. Yes. Now, we learn small intestine. Our small intestine is approximately 6.5 meters in length. It is 6.5 meters in length, and small intestine is divisible into three parts: duodenum, second part is jejunum, and third part is ileum. See, duodenum is very short in length. It is only 25 centimeters. It will be only 25 centimeters, and it is short but wider part. It is short but wider part. Okay. So, duodenum is C-shaped. You have to remember this very well. What is the shape of the duodenum? C-shaped duodenum. Opening into duodenum is the pharynx or pancreas. See, at the curve of this C-shaped part is located leaf-shaped gland called as the pancreas. At the curve of the duodenum is located one gland, that is pancreas. So far what we studied, it is 25 centimeters in length, short and wider, it is C-shaped. At the curve of the C-shaped duodenum is present pancreas, okay, and opening, see one duct called as, this again we are going to learn, hepatopancreatic duct. Hepatopancreatic duct opens into duodenum, okay, opens into duodenum, and the wall of the duodenum shows special digestive glands called as Brunner's glands. What are they called as? Brunner's glands. Okay. So, wall of the duodenum shows digestive glands which are called as Brunner's glands. All these we are repeating in the next session again. Okay. So, opening into duodenum is one duct. Duct means tube-like structure. Hepatopancreatic duct opens into duodenum, and wall of the duodenum shows Brunner's glands. Okay. The next part is the jejunum, which is 2.5 meters in length. It is coiled. What happens in this part is absorption of the food occurs. Digestion of the food occurs. Means I told you yesterday, enzymatic digestion. After you take the food into the body, enzymes act upon them and make them the complex organic molecules into simpler organic molecules. That entire process occurs in jejunum also as well as in ileum also. And here it is 3.5 meters in length. Compared to the other two parts of small intestine, it is a highly coiled structure. It is a highly coiled structure compared to other two parts. And major digestion, okay, occurs in the ileum. Major digestion occurs in the ileum. See, how I am teaching is, first we learn parts. Later, after the explanation of the parts is over, we are going to learn glands. See, for example, salivary glands, everything description. Then we study stomach also shows glands, no? Gastric glands, intestinal glands, liver, pancreas, separately we are going to learn. So, first we learn the parts of the digestive system. I think you understood small intestine. I told you approximately, okay. I told you the size, the length is approximately. So, which is the highly coiled part out of the three parts of the small intestine is ileum. Ileum is highly coiled. In the diagram you can see there. You can see this is the duodenum, C-shaped duodenum. At the arch or bending of C-shaped duodenum only you can see leaf like pancreas. Then comes jejunum. This in the middle part, only in the middle part is highly coiled one is the ileum. Highly coiled one is ileum, and ileum opens into the next part of digestive system, that is the large intestine. Next part is the large intestine. So, now we are going to learn large intestine. Again we switch on to another color, large intestine. large intestine, it is short, only 1.5 meters in length. As I told you, functions of every part of digestive system we learn as a separate topic in the form of column at the end of this chapter. So, you can have all points at one place. So, it is shorter, very shorter when compared to the small intestine. It is only 1.5 meters. See, this outer border you can see, no, that is only the large intestine, but within that, what is that highly coiled part is the small intestine. So, large intestine, it stores undigested matter. Undigested matter, now we can call it as the fecal matter. It temporarily stores undigested matter, and large intestine is divided again into certain parts. Textbook have shown 4 parts. See how you know: ascending colon, ascending colon, okay, ascending colon, then comes transverse colon, transverse colon, next comes descending colon. You need not learn much about this descending colon, and next one is the sigmoid colon, that is not shown, sigmoid colon. See, I will first this side I will write one thing, just to see. First part is actually cecum. First part is cecum, second part is colon, second part is colon, and third part we will learn here, that is the rectum. So, large intestine shows 3 parts: cecum, colon, rectum. Cecum, see, listen carefully, cecum, colon, rectum. Colon shows the 4 parts, like that you have to understand. And cecum is a blind sac, okay, and I think you have studied at school also that from cecum arises vermiform appendix. From the cecum arises vermiform appendix. Vermiform appendix. From the cecum arises vermiform appendix. Appendix, you know, it is vestigial organ. It is present, but it does not perform any function in our body. So, it is vestigial in nature. Are you understanding? From the cecum is the first part of large intestine, which we call it as a blind sac. From the cecum only arises the vermiform appendix, which is regarded as the vestigial organ. Okay? And you would have heard about the disease appendicitis. Okay? If any infection occurs to the vermiform appendix, that is called as appendicitis. Sometimes it will be life threatening if it is infected. So, that operation is conducted. Okay? Along with that, vermiform appendix also shows lymphoid tissue, lymphoid tissues, which will give us actually immunity, lymphoid tissue which gives immunity. See, that is the importance of vermiform appendix. Now, cecum, another part is there. It shows some symbiotic bacteria, which help in the process of digestion. Cecum shows symbiotic bacteria which help in the process of digestion. Okay. So, this is the first part. Second part is the colon. Second part is the colon. I told you 4 divisions I have shown. See, our textbook has shown 3 parts. Here I want to tell you, when you write the board exam, college conducted exam or PU board exam, you write exactly textbook only. No need of writing whatever extra points we are giving here. You should write only textbook points. Then why we are giving extra points means, see at expert NEET coaching also will be somewhat parallel, so that you will be familiar with the extra information we give, but we will guide you. What is there in textbook only you have to write in the board exam. These and all you keep for the NEET, or you can separately underline if it is not there in the textbook. Okay. So, now I will write some points about the colon here, and here I will show you. See children, see this is the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon. There also you can see. Last part is the sigmoid colon. Because it is NCERT textbook, they have not given sigmoid colon, but sigmoid colon is present here, which changes into the third part of the large intestine called as the rectum. So, throughout the abdomen, large intestine is present like this. That is why we get the contractions here when we have to defecate, when we have to eject the fecal matter out, we feel the contractions here, because large intestine is spread like this. Okay? You can see in the diagram also. Now, colon shows round projections like this, see like this, you should imagine these projections like this, round projections which are called as haustra. These are called as the haustra. Please remember, it shows some projection like structures which are called as the haustra. Now, the last part of the large intestine is the rectum, and you know very well, rectum is very short part. You can see in the diagram also, rectum opens out with the help of an opening called as the anus. Okay. So, rectum is the short part, and rectum shows some longitudinal bands, okay, longitudinal bands which are called as tinea. These help in the reabsorption of water. They help in the reabsorption of water. Okay. The wall of the rectum shows certain longitudinal bands all over the length which are called as the tinea. They help in the reabsorption of the water. So, three parts are there in large intestine: cecum, colon and the rectum. And while teaching only, I repeated these points many times. So, the round projections of the colon are called as the haustra, and the longitudinal bands present in the rectum called as the tinea, which help in the reabsorption of the water. See, what does it mean? When the undigested fecal matter is stored in the rectum, if large amount of water is there, the body will reabsorb it, okay, for various other activities. Then only the hard fecal matter comes out of the body. So, that is the reabsorption of the body. Okay. In every system, our body tries to maintain our fluid levels in an equilibrium state. So, it always tries to conserve the water. So, if at all reabsorption I refer, what you have to think? Body is trying to conserve the water source within our tissues, so that all the metabolic activities go on very well. So, this is about the large intestine. And last part, yesterday I told you, how many of you remember? Complete digestive system means what? Which begins with mouth and ends with the anus. So, the last part we are going to learn now, that is anus. What is anus? Okay. So, how will you refer the anus? Anus is the posterior opening, or the alimentary canal opens out through the anus. Posterior opening. Posterior opening. And you know, anus is having two sphincters, which can also be called as valves. Sphincters or valves. One is called as internal sphincter, and second one is called as external sphincter, internal sphincter and external sphincter. See, internal sphincter is formed of smooth muscles, okay, smooth muscles. This is formed of voluntary muscles or striped muscles, voluntary or striped muscles. So, these sphincters or the valves will regulate the movement of the fecal matter. So, this opening is guarded by two types of sphincters. Internally one sphincter means inside, externally another sphincter means outside. Internal sphincter is made up of smooth muscles, whereas external sphincter is made up of voluntary or striped muscles. So, this is, now we have completed learning the parts. Elementary canal is completed now. See, you remember first session I have divided two parts for convenience sake. Digestive system can be studied under two headings. First one is elementary canal. Second part is associated glands, which can also be called as digestive glands. In that first part we have completed. What is the first part? Elementary canal. But before going into the digestive glands, we are going to learn one of the important topic with diagram. See, we know the parts, the walls of the digestive tract, how the layers are arranged. See, starting from esophagus to large intestine, entire length is called as digestive tract. So, the wall shows 4 layers, walls of the digestive tract shows 4 layers. What are those layers? What are villi? Like that we are going to learn, okay, like that we learn, and later we move on to salivary glands, the first digestive glands which are called as the salivary glands. Okay. So, for this we should go to this diagram. Okay. This is histology of wall of digestive tract. Okay. So, see for example, first I will draw one rough diagram. See, this is, we take, actually the layers are present on the entire length of the digestive tract. First I will show one intestine. See, this is the wall of the intestine. See, this is the wall of the intestine. 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. 1, 2, 3, or from outside also we can write 1, 2, 3, 4. Means within the wall 4 layers. See, this wall. How will you imagine intestine or digestive tract? Like this only, chalk piece, like tube like. So, surrounding the wall these layers are present. Like that you have to imagine. If you take a TS, it appears like that. Are you understanding? So, surrounding the entire length, these layers are present. If you take a TS, it appears like this. You can see here hollow part, that is lumen, cavity, it is empty cavity, that is called as the lumen. Okay. The central hollow part of small intestine, large intestine, stomach, esophagus is called as the lumen. Lumen is surrounded by the layers. Now, I will explain what are those layers. So, that is the TS, TS of wall of digestive tract, TS of wall of gut, TS of wall of gut. See, there are 4 layers, there are 4 layers. You can see while teaching, while I teach here, you should see the diagram also. I will show one diagram also. First one is serosa. First one is called as serosa. Second one is called as muscularis. Second one is muscularis. And third part is called as submucosa. Third part is called as submucosa. and fourth part is called as mucosa. Fourth part is called as the mucosa. You can see there serosa, okay. Circular and longitudinal are muscles. You write there to what is it? To save the space in the PPT slide, I have not copied. I thought while teaching I can tell. Circular muscles and longitudinal muscles are together called as muscularis. Then innermost to that is submucosa, innermost to that is the mucosa. Means these layers I have written outer to inner. So, first we learn what is serosa. Serosa I will teach like this, later we will see, we will learn like side headings. See serosa. Serosa is the outermost layer, outermost layer, and it is formed of a type of epithelium called as squamous epithelium. Please remember, squamous epithelium. It is formed of a type of epithelium called as squamous epithelium, and serosa is absent in esophagus, absent in esophagus. I told you first that the 4 layers are present starting from esophagus until large intestine. But in esophagus what happens? Serosa is absent, but other 3 layers are present. And from stomach onwards all the 4 layers are present until large intestine. Okay? So, serosa in whichever part it is. Where these layers are present? Wall. That is why I have written TS of the wall of gut. Okay? So, outermost layer is the serosa, formed of squamous epithelium, and it is absent only in the esophagus. In other 3 parts it is present. Anything that is outermost, you can imagine what would be its function? Its function is protection. Anything outermost will protect the body. Now, we learn the second part. The second part, that is muscularis. Second part is called as the muscularis. Muscularis is formed of muscle layers. Muscularis is formed of muscle layers. Okay? And there are 2 types of muscle layers. 2 types of muscle layers are there. How will you divide them? Inner circular muscle layer, inner circular muscles, okay, and next one is the outer longitudinal muscles. Together they are called as muscularis, outer longitudinal muscles. Okay. So, what is the meaning of muscularis? Just below the serosa, muscularis layer is present, and muscularis shows 2 types of muscle layers: inner circular muscles, outer longitudinal muscles. Together it is called as muscularis. And one of the important point and extra point is, in between these inner circular and outer longitudinal muscle layer, there is nerve plexus, a type of nerve plexus. I will tell you what is plexus. Its name is Auerbach's plexus. Auerbach's plexus. Okay, which can also be called as myenteric plexus. I will explain this, do not worry. Myenteric plexus. See, plexus is just like a junction. See, where many nerves together cross each other at one place, that is called as a plexus. In our body, there are lot of plexus. Means everywhere there are nerve plexus, so that there itself they can control the action of the body. I think you are understanding. What I told is, many nerves crisscross each other at certain points all over the body. Those are called as the nerve plexus. Okay? And they in that part only they will control. See, what is the function of neural system? To control the activity. The nerve plexus, which is nearer to this digestive tract, will control the functioning of that part. like that you should imagine. Like that, nerve plexus name is Aurobox plexus, which is present in between the inner circular muscle layer and also outer longitudinal muscle layer. And this nerve plexus is formed of parasympathetic nerves. Parasympathetic nerves will form the Aurobox nerve plexus. Okay. So, you know, no, autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So, parasympathetic nerves will form a nerve plexus that is called as the Aurobox plexus. And what is the speciality? Why we are learning this much about Aurobox plexus is it controls peristalsis. It controls one action called as peristalsis. What is that? Peristalsis. Okay. So, correct, you have to remember Aurobox plexus shows parasympathetic, a group of parasympathetic nerve fibers together join or group and called as Aurobox plexus. So, this is about muscularis. So, muscularis means what? Which shows two muscle layers, inner circular muscle layer, outer longitudinal muscle layer, and in between them there is a nerve plexus. Now, we learn the second over third part, that is submucosa. Okay, next part is submucosa. Submucosa is formed of CT. Here CT refers to connective tissue and blood vessels. CT refers to connective tissue and also blood vessels. See, submucosa also shows another nerve plexus that is called as Meissner's plexus. Okay, Meissner's plexus can, then what is its function means, it controls the intestinal juice production. Okay, intestinal juice production. Okay, the third layer is called as the submucosa, and which shows CT and blood vessels, and there is nerve plexus, Meissner's plexus, and these nerves belong to sympathetic neural system. So, we call it as sympathetic nerves. Here we called parasympathetic nerves. So, Meissner's plexus is formed of a group of sympathetic nerves which will control the production of the digestive juices like intestinal juices. So, this is about submucosa, and now we are going to learn mucosa. What is mucosa? See, in the diagram also you can see mucosa is the innermost layer. Mucosa is innermost layer that lines the lumen. Okay, mucosa is the innermost layer, you can see here, that lines the lumen. You can see here mucosa is produced into different folds. Okay, so the folds, it forms folds, and in stomach these, see, stomach also shows mucosa layer, no? So, in the stomach these folds are called as rugae. Okay, in stomach these folds are called as the rugae. Okay, and in intestine it forms villi. In intestine it forms the villi like this. Okay, so actually which layer of the mucosa? Epithelium layer of the mucosa also produces glands. It forms the folds and it also contains the glands, whether it is stomach or intestine. So, the folds of the mucosa in stomach are called as rugae. The folds of the mucosa layer in intestine is called as the villi. And all of you know that villi possess again microvilli, which will increase the surface area of absorption. They will increase the surface area of absorption. Surface area of absorption. So, this is the TS of the wall of gut. And for this session, the last slide we see. Okay, you understood now? So, this one submucosa also shows one more plexus, mucinous plexus we have studied. Then innermost layer is the mucosa which lines the lumen. What is the meaning of lumen? I told you the central hollow part is called as the lumen. And now we move on to another one which clearly explains the villi. This is actually wall of intestine is taken and is showing here, wall of the intestine. See, the folds of mucosa are called as villi, which possess microvilli at their tips, and they help in increasing the surface area of absorption. If you observe the villi at the center part, there is one longitudinal cord like structure which is called as lacteal. Lacteal, see villi structure we are learning. Villi shows a lymph vessel in the center, that is called as lacteal. Okay. Lacteal absorbs the fats, absorbs the digested fats, that we are going to learn later, digested fats. Okay. And you can see a supply of blood capillaries also, arteries and veins. See, at the basis of villi, very carefully you have to learn, at the basis of villi there are important intestinal glands called as crypts of Lieberkühn. In the diagram they have given only crypts. See, at the basis of villi there are important intestinal glands called as the crypts of Lieberkühn. Crypts of Lieberkühn produce intestinal juice. They produce intestinal juice which can also be called as succus entericus. Succus entericus. And at the basis of crypts of Lieberkühn, see, at the base of villi or in between the villi, some books will write in between also. So, at the basis or in between the villi, crypts of Lieberkühn are present. And at the base of crypts of Lieberkühn, there are special cells. It is asked in NEET, please take it down. Paneth cells, P-A-N-E-T-H, Paneth cells. At the basis of crypts of Lieberkühn, Paneth cells are present, and Paneth cells will secrete, listen carefully, secrete one enzyme called as lysozyme. Lysozyme, and lysozyme is antibacterial enzyme. It will kill the bacteria that enters our body. So, Paneth cells are present at the basis and they secrete one antimicrobial enzyme called as a lysozyme. Okay, and it may also act as phagocytic. Okay, it may perform phagocytosis also. And another point regarding intestine I want to tell you, called as Peyer's patches. Peyer's patches. And this is the last word for this session, Peyer's patches. Okay, see, nodules. What are Peyer's patches means? Nodules of lymphatic tissue. Nodules of lymphatic tissue. Okay, nodules of lymphatic tissue are the Peyer's patches. You should imagine in different way. Nodules of lymphatic tissue in ileum part of small intestine. In ileum part of small intestine are called as Peyer's patches. Okay. So, listen carefully, if you want you take it down. So, first I will tell like if this is the small intestine, okay. Nodules means what? Round projections. All over the length you can see the nodules of lymphatic tissues. So, these nodules of lymphatic tissues are more in a region called as the ileum. These grouped lymphatic tissues are called as the Peyer's patches. So, I will tell once again, listen carefully. All over the length, see it is not that lymphatic tissues are present only in the ileum. Listen now carefully, if you want you copy. Nodules of lymphatic tissue are present throughout the length of the digestive tract, first point. Second point, these nodules of lymphatic tissue will group many in number in the region of ileum. Okay. Everywhere nodules of lymphatic tissue are present, but nodules of lymphatic tissues are heavily grouped in the ileum part of small intestine. There they are called as Peyer's patches. What are they? Peyer's patches. This Peyer's patches function I am writing, they produce antibodies, sorry, they produce lymphocytes. Peyer's patches produce lymphocytes which will help in immunity, in developing the immunity. See, one last time I want to tell you, all over the length of the intestine, there are nodules of lymphoid tissue. Nodule means ball like structure, okay, and these nodules of lymphoid tissues are more in number in the ileum part of small intestine. There they are called as Peyer's patches. Function of Peyer's patches is production of lymphocytes which causes immunity.